Country Women's Association, well, you might think it's got nothing to do with you, audience, just a group of old ladies who knit tea cozies and make good scones, but they just do so much more in this country, and it's International Women's Day, so we thought we'd welcome the women that hold rural Australia together. Would you welcome Leslie, Valmay and Audrey from the CWA? Thank you so much for joining us. This is a scone revolution. We're not just talking Easter shows and pussycats anymore, are we, Leslie?
No, we're certainly not.
No. What are we talking?
We're talking about what's happening with people out there in rural communities and the role that we play in helping them.
It's really hard out there at the moment.
It's dreadful out there at the moment, and I think there's a lot of people just don't realise how serious it is and how the people out there are suffering so much with the impact of this drought that's been going on for so long.
And it is the worst drought in history.
It's one in 100 years.
Yeah.
That's what we're told. Even yesterday we had a minister tell us that.
But even if we get rain, the drought's not over. The impact of the drought isn't over.
Definitely not. I mean, it will go on for a few years before there's any sort of recovery whatsoever. And at the moment, you see some areas have got a lot of rain and it looks wonderful in some areas, and other areas have got nothing. But the big problem is that overall it has affected our stock markets. It's affected our whole trading all the way through, and people have had to sell cattle, sell their stock, so that because they've got no water, and a lot of them have run out of fodder as well. And then you've got to look at the impact of that, and the crops failed as well. I mean, this drought is really 6 years since it started, and the water situation is really critical, and so is the fodder. But we've got to look at a recovery. And the young farmers are having a very, very difficult time.
How do you cope with the young men whose self-esteem is so based on farming and doing the land and then falling into such depression?
Well, it's very disillusioning for them. They hope to go on and carry on as their generations have done, and there's very little future in some cases.
And so many young people leaving the land too,
yes,
because
there's no incomes coming in.
And in some cases, the young person that has dreamed all his life of being back there on the farm and being able to take over from their parents are suddenly finding that, no, they can't do that. They're actually got to go somewhere else and get a job because their parents are in such a state that they can't let them have the farm, they can't bring them in, they can't employ them. And so their future is gone, their dreams have gone.
So what sort of things are the CWA lobbying the government about? Is it true that you were lobbying for the legalisation of marijuana?
That was one of the issues that came up at our national conference last year.
Because I'm looking at these scones and I'm thinking, you know, this might be... What was all that about? What was the purpose behind that?
One of the things that the CWA looks at is issues that affect families and people within those families. And there's a section of the community that have health issues, terminal health issues, that can't get pain relief under traditional methods. And marijuana has been proven in some places to be able to help them. So we've just been asking the federal government if they will look at legislation to enact trials to see whether there is a way that it can be made legal for these people so that it can help them.
So, I mean, marijuana is an incredibly dangerous drug, and I mean, I guess the marijuana that people have access today is so much stronger than, you know, the pot that the hippies smoked, I guess, back in the 60s and 70s. That hydroponic stuff. Exactly, and you have a high concentration of THC in the... I mean, would you be lobbying for that marijuana to be grown in a particular way? Exactly.
We have... you know, it can be grown in a particular way. If it's found to have been of benefit for people, then there is a way it can be done. And we do it now with the morphine industry. Tasmania has an industry of growing poppies, which is grown for morphine. It's grown under very strict controls, and that is for pain relief, morphine for pain relief. And we're one of the biggest suppliers in the world. And the same sort of thing could apply with marijuana.
I heard an argument recently that THC, the chemical that Libby mentioned, which is the chemical, I guess, that suppresses nausea and is pain relief, can actually be not addictive, but well, I'm sure it can be. But it can be created as a tablet form. So, I mean, would you advocate that rather than the actual smoking of the marijuana?
I think it's one of the things that needs to be determined through the trials, and I think, you know, whether it be taken through a tablet form or dished up to people in scones, as you were talking about, you know, if it's of benefit to the people and giving them relief, and these are people with terminal illnesses, and it is.
It
What
should
other
be,
wo- what
it
other-
should be recognised that we actually hotly debated this in New South Wales, and it ended up with over 700 delegates at a state conference actually voting exactly the same. We were completely split on the topic.
So we
and
don't
the state
have a policy
president, well, we do, as much as the state president actually, she cast her vote in the negative, which meant that we just did not go ahead with it. And I think we also voted against it at national level.
But it's
but
what
it
it
was for
says to us
medicinal
is that the
purposes.
CWA is moving forward and actually getting themselves
Absolutely.
involved in huge social issues.
It was only one of the issues that was discussed at the national conference. We looked at other health issues, the closing of birthing facilities. We looked at the country of origin labelling on our food, so that consumers need to know where their food comes from, whether it's Australian, whether it's local grown, or whether it comes from another country. And you can't tell that by looking at the labels of your processed food.
But my concern with the marijuana trials is that in some way the CWA is seen as advocating it. You've currently got so many people suffering from depression in rural areas.
Absolutely.
Marijuana is a depressant.
Yeah.
I think
Is
the
that
girls
something
are
that
saying
you
that it's for medicinal use,
Oh, yeah, no,
for
but I'm
terminal
saying,
illness.
no, exactly. But I mean, in saying that, you have the slippery slope effect where, perhaps, a young person's going, well, Grandpa was smoking pot on his way out. Maybe I can raid his stash.
I think that really the issue that we're most concerned about at the moment is actually the effect that the drought
Exactly,
and
the
the
depression.
water problems are having in the depression with mental health and suicide. But I think we have to look positively, and the government has actually given through CWA of Australia millions in the last few weeks, and Woolworths also contributed.
$23 million from Woolworths.
On behalf of all of us in the audience
Not
and at
23
home,
million, dear.
on
3
International
million.
Women's Day, we'd like to give the ladies a round of applause for looking after the backbone of our country, and we celebrate and salute you. If you want to know more about the Country Women's Association, please go to our website. The address is on your screen. And once again, we'd like to thank you so much for sharing your lunchtime with us today. Tomorrow on the show, a cowboy with a twist, Adam Sutton. A top model manager talks about the dangerous trend in model body image. And of course, we go to Stella McCartney's new fashion line. Remember, it only takes an hour out of your day to catch up, and we look forward to sharing it with you. See you next time.